Hello Army, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome, because today we are doing something that I have wanted to do for a long time, and a recent development has given us the perfect occasion to do it. Today we are talking about Jimin's credits. Not his stage credits, not his performance history, not the chart positions and the streaming numbers and the award show wins, although all of those are genuinely extraordinary and deserve their own conversations. Today we are specifically talking about his creative credits. His songwriting. His production contributions. His vocal arrangements. His instrumental work. Everything that Jimin has put into the music that bears his name, both as a member of BTS and as a solo artist, that does not always get discussed with the seriousness and the specificity that it deserves. And the occasion for this conversation is the news that Jimin has been added to Dork Credits, a British music magazine's comprehensive database that tracks artists' songwriting, production, and appearance credits on their releases. His profile on Dork Credits highlights his extensive work in both BTS and his solo projects, including songwriting, production, vocals, and instrumentation. So let's talk about what all of that actually means, and why it matters more than it might initially seem. First, let me tell you what Dork is and why being added to their credits database is significant, because context is everything here, and Dork is not just any music publication. Dork is a British music magazine that has been covering the contemporary music scene with genuine critical seriousness for years, and its credits database is a specific and particular kind of recognition. It is the documentation of artists as creative contributors rather than just as performers. The distinction matters enormously. In the music industry, there is a persistent tendency to separate the category of performer from the category of creator, to treat singing and dancing as execution and to reserve the language of artistic creation for the people who write the songs and produce the tracks. Dork Credits explicitly pushes back against this tendency by tracking and publicizing the full range of creative contributions that artists make to their music, including contributions that might otherwise go unnoticed or undiscussed. When Dork adds an artist to their credits database and highlights their extensive work in songwriting, production, vocals, and instrumentation, they are making a statement about how that artist should be understood, not as a performer of other people's creative visions but as a genuine creative contributor whose work deserves to be documented and recognized in the same terms that we use to recognize any other music industry creator. For Jimin, whose contributions to both BTS's catalog and his own solo work are genuinely extensive but do not always get the attention they deserve in mainstream discussions of K-pop, this recognition from a British music database is both timely and meaningful. Now let's get into the actual substance of what Jimin's creative credits look like, because this is where things get genuinely interesting and where the scale of what he has contributed starts to become visible in a way that surprises even longtime fans. Jimin has been involved in the creation of BTS's music since the early years of the group's career, and his contributions span multiple dimensions of the creative process. He has contributed to songwriting, he has contributed to production, he has provided the vocal arrangements that have become some of the most recognized and most emotionally resonant moments in the BTS catalog, and he has contributed to the instrumental texture of recordings in ways that are often technically invisible but creatively significant. Let's start with the songwriting contributions, because these are the most visible and most directly attributable of his creative credits. Jimin has writing credits on multiple BTS and solo tracks, and the range of what he has contributed in these writing sessions tells you something important about how he approaches the creative process. He is not a songwriter who contributes in a single dimension or who has a fixed approach that produces the same kind of material every time. He works differently on different projects, bringing different aspects of his creative identity to different songs, and the results are consistently distinctive in a way that reflects a genuine and developed artistic voice. Among the tracks where Jimin's songwriting contributions are most directly visible is the beloved solo track Lie, from the Wings album, a deeply personal and intensely artistic piece that explores themes of internal conflict and the experience of feeling trapped between different versions of the self. Lie is one of the most discussed and most critically respected pieces in the entire BTS catalog, and it bears Jimin's creative fingerprints not just in the vocal performance, which is extraordinary, but in the specific emotional and conceptual construction of the song itself. The way Lie is structured, the way it builds and releases and returns to its central emotional tension, reflects a compositional intelligence that goes beyond following a template or executing someone else's vision. Then there is Filter, from the Map of the Soul, 7 album, which is perhaps the most explicitly performative and most openly playful expression of Jimin's artistic identity. Filter is a song about transformation and self-presentation, about the quality of being able to become different things for different people while remaining fundamentally yourself, and it is also the most direct artistic statement about what Jimin actually does as a performer. The writing of Filter, the choice of subject matter, the specific way the themes are framed, the playful and slightly provocative tone that runs through it is entirely characteristic of Jimin and could not have been written by someone who did not understand from the inside what it feels like to do what he does. His solo album Face, released in 2023, represents the fullest and most concentrated expression of his songwriting voice to date as a solo artist. The album's thematic coherence, its exploration of identity, authenticity, the relationship between public and private self, the experience of facing yourself honestly, is not accidental. It is the result of intentional and sustained creative work by someone who had things to say and who developed the songwriting craft to say them with precision and emotional impact. Tracks like Lie, Set Me Free PT2, and the album's more introspective pieces reveal a songwriter who thinks carefully about structure, about how emotional truth is built through accumulation and specificity, and about the particular relationship between a song's sonic texture and its emotional content. For the Ararang album, Jimin's creative contributions continue and deepen this trajectory. He came into the recording process for Ararang with years of accumulated experience as a creative contributor, with a more fully developed artistic voice than he had at any previous point, and with the specific quality of emotional clarity that military service seems to have given several of the members, a stripping away of what was unnecessary, a more direct access to what genuinely matters. His contributions to Ararang reflect all of this. Now let's talk about his production contributions, because this is the dimension of Jimin's creative work that is least visible to casual observers and most significant in terms of what it reveals about his musical intelligence. Production credits in modern popular music cover an enormous range of contributions, from the purely technical to the deeply artistic, and what they all have in common is that they involve shaping the sonic texture of a recording, the specific quality of how a song sounds, how the elements of the arrangement interact, what is foreground and what is background, how the emotional arc of the song is supported or complicated by the instrumental and sonic choices made in the production process. Jimin has contributed to production on his own work in ways that reflect a genuine understanding of these questions. The production of his solo material has a specific and recognizable sonic character that is not just the result of working with skilled producers but of an artist who has clear and developed ideas about what he wants his music to sound like and why. The specific tonal qualities of the instrumentation in his solo work, the way that electronic and acoustic elements are balanced and interact, the use of space and silence as expressive tools, these are production choices that reflect artistic intelligence, and they are not all attributable to the producer in the conventional sense. They are the result of a collaborative process in which Jimin's own aesthetic sensibility has a real and direct influence on the final product. His vocal contributions to the BTS catalog, and here I am using vocal contributions in the broad sense that Dork Credits uses it, which includes not just performance but arrangement, are among the most significant and most celebrated in the group's history. Jimin has one of the most distinctive vocal identities in K-pop, characterized by a specific combination of technical precision, emotional expressiveness, and tonal quality that is immediately recognizable and that has become one of the defining characteristics of BTS's sound across multiple albums and musical eras. But beyond the distinctiveness of his voice as an instrument, the specific way he uses that voice, the choices he makes about when to be full and powerful, when to be delicate and intimate, how to navigate the specific emotional journey of a given song, reflects a vocal intelligence that goes well beyond execution. There are moments in the BTS catalog that are defined almost entirely by Jimin's vocal choices. The falsetto passages in Spring Day. The raw, barely controlled emotion of the performance sections of Lie. The playful, deliberately manipulated vocal texture of Filter. The breathless quality of certain passages in Permission to Dance. These are not just performances, they are vocal arrangements, specific choices about how to use the voice as a musical instrument to achieve particular emotional effects. And the fact that they are so consistently right, so consistently aligned with the emotional and thematic content of the songs they appear in, reflects a level of vocal creative intelligence that deserves exactly the kind of formal recognition that Dork Credits provides. Let's also spend some time on the instrumentation credits, because this is perhaps the most surprising dimension of Jimin's creative profile for people who are not deeply familiar with his background. Before joining Big Hit, before BTS, before any of the choreography and the stages and the global stardom, Jimin was a performing arts student who was studying dance. But his musical education, while not as formally developed as some other members' backgrounds in theory and composition, gave him a real and genuine engagement with music as something to be made rather than just performed. He has contributed to instrumentation on recordings in ways that reflect this, bringing specific musical sensibilities to the texture of tracks in ways that are sometimes subtle but consistently meaningful. Now I want to talk about why all of this matters for how we understand Jimin and for how we talk about him to people who are not already familiar with his work, because the dork credits recognition is an opportunity to reframe a conversation that has sometimes been too narrow in how it describes what Jimin is and what he does. The dominant narrative about K-pop in Western media contexts has sometimes been reductive in a specific way, treating idols as performers of other people's creative visions rather than as creative contributors in their own right, suggesting that the artistic merit of K-pop is located in the production and the choreography rather than in the artists themselves. This narrative has always been inaccurate when applied to BTS generally, and it is particularly inaccurate when applied to Jimin specifically. Dork Credits is a British music industry database that operates on the same principles that it applies to Western artists. If you wrote the song, if you produced the track, if you arranged the vocals, if you played the instrument, you get the credit. And Jimin has the credits. That is not a small thing. That is a formal, industry-standard documentation of artistic contribution that places Jimin in the same category as every other credited songwriter, producer, and arranger in the database, regardless of genre, regardless of language, regardless of cultural origin. It treats him as what he is, a music creator, and documents his work with the same seriousness that the work deserves. For ARMY who have been advocating for Jimin's creative recognition for years, this dork credits inclusion is one more piece of formal evidence for what the community has always known. For people who are encountering Jimin for the first time, or who have a limited understanding of his creative contributions, the dork credits profile is an invitation to look more carefully, to go beyond the performances, which are extraordinary, and engage with the creative intelligence that shapes them, which is equally extraordinary. And for the broader conversation about K-pop and its place in the global music industry, Jimin's inclusion in a British music database's credit system is a small but meaningful marker of the kind of recognition that the genre is increasingly receiving, not as a curiosity or a commercial phenomenon but as a source of genuine artistic contribution to contemporary music, made by artists who are as serious about the craft of music making as any of their Western counterparts. The dork credits profile for Jimin is available at readerk.com/credits/Jimin, and I strongly encourage everyone watching this video to go and look at it. Not just to feel proud, although you absolutely should feel proud, but to actually engage with the full picture of what is documented there, the full scope of what Jimin has contributed to the music that has meant so much to so many people. Look at the songs with his writing credits and think about what those songs are and what they do. Look at the production contributions and think about the specific sonic choices that shaped those recordings. Look at the vocal credits and think about the specific moments in those songs where his voice does something that changes everything about how the song lands. Because that is the full picture of what dork credits is documenting. Not just the fact of Jimin's creative contributions, but the significance of them, the accumulated body of work of a genuinely serious music creator who has been making real and meaningful art for over a decade, whose contributions have shaped some of the most emotionally impactful music of the last 10 years, and whose creative identity is finally being formally recognized in the terms that it has always deserved. Jimin is more than a singer. He always has been. And now a British music database has put it on record. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people who need to understand the full picture of what Jimin is as an artist. Drop a comment below telling me which Jimin creative credit surprises you most, which song or which contribution did you not know about before today? Subscribe if you have not already, share this with your fellow ARMY, and I will see you in the next one. Purple you all.